Considering the challenges but also opportunities, the new security architecture in the Middle East, and considering the role of Cyprus into this new security architecture, it is essential that we examine and evaluate but also analyze the current and future state of affairs. Today, I have the honor and pleasure to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Oren Anolik, who is Ambassador of the State of Israel to Cyprus. My name is Dr. Marios Efthymiopoulos. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Strategy International, and this is Prime Analysis. Dear Ambassador Anolik, thank you very much for coming at Prime Analysis of Strategy International.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Dear Ambassador, I know that you have an extensive experience in the fields of international relations and diplomacy, and we would like to discuss, if you want, a few things with regards to what is happening around us in the periphery, but also globally. And I think we're discussing things at a moment which is pivotal. We have a newly elected president of the United States that is coming in. We have a lot of developments in the Middle East that we're going to be talking about. But it is very important, we guess, that discussing and analyzing the effects on how a personality like yourself works and operates within the Republic of Cyprus really matters, especially for the bilateral relations, but also for the periphery and the developments as such. But before we go into these discussions, we usually start here at Strategy with the life of Ambassador Anolik. So where do we start with, the young person that has a lot of visions, dreams of what he wants to do in his life?
I will not say that this is an accident that I got where I got, but it's not far from it, because when I was a young student at university, I didn't really plan on becoming a diplomat. This was not my life goal. I was actually studying to be an accountant. This was what I was supposed to be. Yes. And in the last year, senior year university, there was these people coming from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to tell us what is it to be a diplomat. And I said, let's go and listen to what they have to say. And I was fascinated about what they had to say. I mean, they had told very interesting stories. One of them actually served in Swaziland in Africa. The other one served in Ecuador. And they had fascinating stories about life abroad and what it is all about, what is it to be a diplomat. And I said to myself, interesting. I didn't think of it before, but I can apply. The chances are very low anyway. It's a long process of selection. You get about 2,000 applicants. Out of them, about 20 are getting selected eventually. So I can apply. Chances are low, but let's see. And surprisingly enough, I passed all the different stages. And then at the end of the year, I had to make a decision. Do I want to be an accountant or do I want to be a diplomat? And I have to say, at that point, it was not a big dilemma for me. I said, no, I think I'm going to give it a try. And it's almost 30 years have passed since. And I've been doing this in 3 different continents, variety of positions, very diverse, I have to say. And one of the wonderful things about being a diplomat is the diversity of the work that you do geographically, but also when you talk about the themes and the issues you are dealing with. I served in Eritrea in East Africa, I served in Czech Republic, I served in Washington, D.C., and now I'm here in Cyprus. Each place has its own unique set of issues, of dilemmas, of challenges that you need to deal with.
Of course.
And I feel that every morning I wake up, I need to almost reinvent myself every day and to deal with a variety of issues.
Having a lot of friends who are in diplomatic work of different countries, I know that work is not easy and the balances are not easy, and especially when you represent your country as the number one citizen of your country. In that representation of this state really matters very much, the way that we treat, the way that we discuss with people, what we say and how we say it. Did the experiences throughout your years shaped opinions about what is happening around the world? When in my case, for example, when I was a student, people used to tell us travel, get engaged, get involved, learn, listen a lot. But the ideologies, at least mine, changed a lot. The what I believe it is and versus what it is in the reality, but also the information that comes from people, the difference of cultures, which really matters, and also the way we're coming from, where we see things, let's say from the Cyprus point of view, but in Washington they see it differently because of geographical reasons, above all. Did it shape your opinions? Does it make you think more and more on how people will react on any?
The answer is yes and no. This is the answer, and I'll try to explain why this is a yes and a no. On the one hand, nobody stays the same. Now, there's an old Chinese proverb that you cannot go into the same river twice. You change, the river changes, everything changes. A person that doesn't grow, that doesn't develop, that doesn't study, doesn't learn, that doesn't evolve with time, might as well be dead. I mean, it makes no sense to go through life and just stay exactly as you were. On the other hand, I'm not just a private person. I have to represent my government and the position of my government. So it's always some kind of there's this tension all the time between the private Oren and Ambassador Anolik. And I think that the key here is being able to balance these kind of tensions and being able to bring about not just the official positions of the government, but also your own personality. I think this is the key for success as an ambassador. The fact that you can connect with people, not just based on what you say, but also on who you are. And I feel very much in this regard, I think that my years in Cyprus, and it's been already 3.5 years, I think that people genuinely feel that I love Cyprus, because it's true. Yeah. I really love Cyprus. I love the place. I love the people. I love my staying here. There's a reason why I extended for a 5th year my tenure here. And I think that when you approach people from this point of view, they react to this. So you can also create those kind of personal relations, those kind of personal conversations that go beyond your official position without forgetting this official position that you have and the need to represent your country. But I think that people react, they connect to the person you are, not just to the title that you have.
Bilateral relations between Cyprus and Israel. You start mentioning the people to people, the personal affection towards the state. And I know you're one of the favorite ambassadors of Cyprus, not only because of the political situation, because of your simplicity.
Simplicity.
You're approachable as a person. Okay. You're open to discussions. You're open to hear out how people think and what they think about Israel, and that's really important. I mean, you did this with me. I mean, I guess this is your character among others, but your personality. But the bilateral relations between Cyprus and Israel, and in the extent that we also have Greece in that, it's been developing quite well. Many of us wanted it. It is a strategic partnership, and we hope that this will increase into deep alliance. Let me say that. How do you think things have developed, and slowly going into the challenges that started vis-a-vis the terrorist acts on October the 7th, 2023, which actually changed basically the architecture of the Middle East?
The Israel-Cyprus relations, we have relations from before both countries were actually established. Mm-hmm. They are I don't want to call them ancient, but we've been in connection with each other for many years. There was, I think, always this kind of a strict, this kind of a connection between the people. It goes back to the time of the detention camps here in Cyprus, and the assistance that the Jewish Holocaust survivors that were detained here were assisted by the Cypriot population. I even have a family connection here, because the great-grandfather of my children, the grandfather of my ex-wife, he was actually the first consul general here in Cyprus back in 1950 until 52. So we were actually had diplomatic representation here even before the establishment of Cyprus as a republic. Now, throughout the years, if you look at it from a strategic point of view, we had formal relations, but we also had a lot of disagreements, and it went hand in hand with the fact that Israel, for many years, was very close to Turkey. Cyprus, on the other hand, was a non-aligned country, part of the non-aligned movement. So there was some differences and gaps, but still we had diplomatic relations and we had connection. I think that really the biggest change is something of the last 15, 20 years, when we saw a process on both sides of getting closer and closer and closer. And I think that this trend kicked off really, again, roughly the last 15 years, and brought us to where I would dare say that the relations are strategic between Israel and Cyprus today, which is not something that anybody would have said 15 years ago.
Indeed.
As we record this, the previous week from this recording, I was at a gala dinner of a Jewish organization that was held here in Cyprus, and they awarded former President Anastasiadis for for his policies and strategies that brought together so closely Israel, the Jewish community, and Cyprus. And it's true. Under those 10 years of Anastasiadis, we saw a huge increase, and this trend is continuing now as well. There is very close, very good relation between the leaders. There's very good relations on the political sphere. We on many issues we see things very similarly. Look at what's happening in Syria. I accompanied Foreign Minister Kombos when he went to Israel just before Christmas, and I was there in his discussions and conversations with the Israeli leadership. And when we discuss Syria, we see many things very much eye to eye, the challenges and the opportunities there. It's interesting to see it, but it's not the only. It's just an example. It's not the only thing. The way we see it, for us, Cyprus is the closest country to us physically, which is a like-minded country, that we share same kind of values and same kind of looking the world and appreciating the same kind of thing. If it's democracy, if it's human rights, if it's the need of security and stability in the region, there are many things that bring us together in this regard. So we are, when you talk about the bilateral relations, we're in a good place. I believe that the trend is going to continue this way. The level of trust is high, and it was thanks to this level of trust, for example, the project or the initiative of the maritime corridor, known here as Amalthea Plan, was able to be implemented. It was based on this trust that we have with Cyprus. So I think that we are in a good place.
You pointed out a great deal of things. I'll start with a few years back with when President Anastasiadis was there, and the electric connection between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, which actually gave a boost to what is known as major business agreements, which actually gave, I think, an impetus also. It has an extension, I think, also later in the Abrahamic Accords. As well, give it the opportunity to think in different ways and aspects, also of those global trading countries that want to go maybe through Israel, maybe through the Mediterranean overall. Let me start with the following. How do you see, or you envision, the development of major agreements between the three states? Let's start with the two, but from the two, it's an entrance to the EU, and the relationship that develops through major business agreements.
Well, you put together several things at the same time, and I think we need to try to separate them. It's a bit too much together. I would start with the bilateral, and you mentioned the interconnector and the connection of electricity, which is part of I would say a bigger issue, which is the cooperation on energy. And if I need to point out what are the three pillars that the relations are built on, energy is one of them, security and defense is another one, absolutely. And the third one, it doesn't have a good title, but I would call it politics or policies or
the region.
The way that we cooperate in the region Israel and Cyprus, and then we can bring in Greece and others as well. So these are, I would say, the three pillars of the relations, and but they are not alone. To this, you can add trade and investments for sure. You can add tourism, which is important in our relation. You can add health and medical cooperation. You can add the cooperation on combating climate crisis. We share the same air, same water. There are plenty of it we can do together, and we are doing together, and a long list of other issues as well. So first of all, I think that our relations are broad, in the sense that there are many issues on the agenda, and they are diverse, and they go deep on some of those issues. Now, on this, we can look into the regional cooperation, and there's no doubt about the fact that in this trilateral cooperation of Israel, Cyprus, and Greece, this is first of all, it shows that we have so many things that are in common, that we share. And again, we look about the strategic way we look at the region and the situation, and the values that bind us together. And it sends a message. It sends a message to our people, first of all. It sends a message to our neighbors. It sends a message beyond the region to other places. And we also have this very good cooperation with the United States, known as the 3+1, which is another example of the way that this partnership, I would say, is playing a role. What was the question?
The question on the electric connect, on the interconnector, basically. We saw it, the interconnector, as an opportunity for, as you said, to blossom all these levels because they're interconnected. We did have a problem understanding how these things blossom together, but you effectively said it very clearly that one leads to another. So it's a circular element that it leads to massive, if you want, attachment between the states. And you mentioned at some point also security and defense. And I want to go a bit.
May I say just one thing on energy and the interconnector before we move on? There is what's the right word? Sometimes there's discrepancy between the strategic value of things and the day-to-day details that you need to work on. And the day-to-day details are complicated. It's not easy. It's a project it's a huge project, the interconnector. I want to say two things in this regard. One, we continue to support this. We believe that this is a very positive project, and we would like to see it being implemented. And the negotiation on this would continue. It will take some more time, but we continue to be very supportive of this. And the second thing is, if you try to zoom out, and this is called Strategy International, and on a strategic level, it's very much a part of a broader view of a corridor that goes all the way from southern Asia, from India, through the Gulf states, through the Middle East, through Cyprus and Greece into Europe. And this is a corridor for electricity, for energy, for communication, for trade. And I, from a strategic point of view, you need to see this also in this regard. This is where this is going. It sounds a bit maybe very optimistic, but you can look down the road and you can see how this interconnector can go further into the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia, etc., and can be a source, for example, of solar energy, electricity coming all the way from the Arabian Peninsula into Europe. I mean, the potential here is great, and it shows that what I would call the moderate camp, going from Europe through Israel, through the moderate Arab countries, have a lot in common, and we can work together for the benefit of our people and for the benefit of the world.
While you were talking, I was thinking that as you said, in the energy sector, there's also the transfer of oil and gas, as an example. There's also the internet grids that actually go below the Red Sea, actually. And that says a lot why there's a lot of competition and a lot of fighting for a lot of reasons in the business world. But that leads me again to follow on the defense and security. I think nothing can be achieved without a structure that gives us a defensive posture, a strategic posture where we secure our infrastructure, we secure our grids, we secure our own states. We resolve conflicts, and we respond to conflicts that are actually emerging because of hybrid threats or because of terrorist acts. The October event of 2023 altered a great deal the security apparatus of the region in its totality. Cyprus was very clear cut from the beginning with regards to the terrorist groups. And to be honest, this has to end because we cannot blossom, we cannot bring stability, we cannot bring security with terrorist groups. That's my personal opinion, just to clarify. But it showcased that it is better together because we started talking about strategic relationship, and we've seen the latest years a great common exercises in the military sector between Israel and Cyprus. We have seen the development and the discussions of a common security area. And we are seeing from the point of the European Union the need for more dialogue in the defense sector, which also includes obviously standards, technology, and all. What's your intake from your experiences and what you've seen the latest years happening?
It's always a dilemma how you approach this question. Do you approach it from the point of view of yourself, of Israel, where are we in this region, how we view the situation? Or do you take it from the outside in and you start with what are the threats that we are seeing and and take it from there? And I want to start actually with the other way around, because I think that it is very hard to understand what's going on without understanding the bigger picture and and who is the biggest player, which is the most destructive one and the one that is trying very much to take us into the wrong direction in this region. So you cannot start discussing what you just mentioned without speaking about the Iranian regime. Right. And I speak about the Iranian regime because I do see a difference between Iran as a nation, as a civilization, and the current regime there, which is a very negative one. So Iran is a major player in this region, and it's not a status quo player. They don't want to maintain things as they are. They strongly believe that they need to promote a revolution in this region. Mm-hmm. For them, Israel is just one element, but they also look at the other moderate Arab countries around them and Muslim countries around them, and they would like to bring about a whole change, a whole revolution into this region. This is what we are looking at. Now, they have several tools that they are using in this regard. One of them is the nuclear program, which is tremendously dangerous for the world, not just for the region and for Israel. The other one is the ballistic missile program. And the third one is their chain of proxies that they are building around them. So this is the main threat that we are seeing, not only us, others as well. This is the kind of thing that brings us together with other players, if it's in the region, if it's beyond the region, that understand this threat. And it very much dictates the way that we want to operate. Now, if you go back to October 7, 2023, this day was a devastating day for us, no doubt about it. We were surprised. We did not expect this. And this was the worst day in the Jewish history since the Holocaust. The number of Israelis that died on that day alone was the highest number per one day since the Holocaust. But if you go down the road and you for a second detach yourself from the emotional element here, which is hard for us as Israelis, but I'm trying to do it here from a strategic point of view, and try to see who has the upper hand 15 months since this has happened. So you look at Iran, and you discover that Iran since then was weakened dramatically. Its most important ally, which is Hezbollah, was defeated in Lebanon. Hamas was defeated in Gaza. They lost the Assad regime, and there is a connection to what I said before. Mm-hmm. There is a connection because the defeat of Hezbollah played a role in what the rebels in Syria did and their abilities to topple the Assad regime. And Iran itself, after making the mistake of attacking Israel, and we responded to this, got weaker as well because they know very well how badly they were hit in those attacks both in April and in October. So Iran was weak in sense, and we look at Israel and our strategic view, and still there's no shortage of threats and challenges, but also Hezbollah is weaker, Hamas is weaker, and in Syria we still need to see what's going to happen with those jihadists, but it's not the Assad regime, which is also an advantage. So strategically, our situation has gotten better. So we are in this neighborhood. You said before, this has to end, which is, I can relate to what you're saying, but unfortunately, this is not how things happen. It's not, things don't happen because we think they need to happen. You need to take steps, you need to keep on working, and you need to understand that a lot of those adversaries are not going to disappear. It's not okay, we hit them and this is it. It's an ongoing process that you need to keep on working it all the time. You need to find the opportunities, you need to find the allies, you need to bond and to make connection with others that see situation as similar to you, and keep on grinding and working against those that believe in chaos, that believe in revolution, that believe in political Islam in this regard, and make sure that you have the upper hand all the time. It's an ongoing thing. It's not something that you can say, okay, this is it, it's over. We won the war, and things are
it doesn't
going
happen like that. No,
exactly.
Of course not. What you know what struck me the most on these events is I knew that until 7th of October there were extensive negotiations, let's say, with the perspective of acknowledgement of relationships between Saudi Arabia and Israel and vice versa. There was a blossoming opportunity, as I said, with those strategic allies for business and other reasons that they were coming together. The Abrahamic Accord was a masterpiece of agreement with the Arab Gulf countries and North Africa, like Morocco as well. The U.S. had done a very good role, and that was overturned in a blink of an eye because somebody, as you said, such as Iran, wanted to have a revolution, and they want to have terrorist acts showcasing, if you want, their capability of doing destruction, if you want. The fear, terrorism is the main actor. But what struck me was that it was organized, that they were planning for it. So it is obvious that if they were training in Gaza, people would see them around them. It's not that big. In order to not be distinguished of all these exercises that they were doing. The other thing is that they were having, I'm not sure, but they were having GoPros on their fist, and they were advertising this on the internet live.
Yes.
So that's an act, that's a crime, it's a huge crime. It's a terrorist crime, but it's a terrorist crime with, they had a vengeance on it. They wanted to kill anybody who was on the opposite side. That's it. It doesn't matter who it was. And the way that they did it, obviously, testifies for more. And that struck me that those terrorist groups cannot be there. They have no political power. They should not have no political discussion or whatsoever. But here's the problem. How do you explain to the world that these groups are terrorist groups? Because things a year later, we have the tendency to forget that these are terrorist groups.
I disagree. I don't think that we have a tendency to forget who they are. And I think that the world knows very well, and again, the world is a big word, but if you speak about Hamas, if you talk about the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, if you speak about Hezbollah, there is a clear understanding that these are terrorist organizations. They are recognized as such, some of them by the EU, some of them by the United States, some of them by the United Nations. So I don't think that this is the problem. I think that the problem is a bit different. The problem is that there are people who think that these are Martians. These are people that came from another planet, and they took hostage the local population. And if it was up to the local population, this would have never happened, which is not the case. I'm not saying that the entire population in Gaza, for example, are terrorists. That's not what I'm saying. This is not the case at all. But we need to understand that there is support among part of this population to these activities. Is it justified or not? Why is it coming from? It's a long discussion, but it has to be clear that there is this connection. There is the Hamas is operating from within the population, but not always by use of force. Sometimes people actually support and believe in those causes of Hamas, which is very sad the way I see it. Going one step back as to what you said. So the world knows who they are, and I don't think that at least the civilized world in any way believes that in the causes of Hamas. there is a bit of mudding of the water when people think that the cause of Hamas or the goal of Hamas actually in any way reflect what the Palestinian people would have wanted as well. So people that feel that they want to support the Palestinian cause don't understand that by supporting Hamas, they are not supporting the Palestinian cause. Hamas, what it did, it brought about eventually a terrible catastrophe, a disaster for the Palestinian people. This is not what needs to happen. If there are people out there, and one of the difficult things for me as ambassador sometimes to explain to people is that you don't necessarily have to look at situation only as a zero-sum game.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to say, okay, I support the Palestinian, therefore I'm anti-Israeli. No, it's not the case at all. You need to look on the merits of things and say, I can, on the one hand, I can agree with Israel about Israel's right to exist, about Israel's right to defend itself, about the need for security for Israelis, and I can also support the Palestinian cause and their right for self-determination, and if they want to,
they have all these rights, but under democracy,
can live
rules
together. They don't necessarily have to be something that you have to choose and say, no, if I support Palestine, I have to be anti-Israeli. This is something which is very hard in this world today, when people want to know black or white, good or bad.
This is where we are.
There's no room for something which is a bit more. But the way I'm trying to explain to people is this. There are people in Israel, Israelis, that actually support some of the claims of Palestinians. It doesn't make those Israelis anti-Israeli. We also want to exist. We also want to survive. We don't want to be attacked by those terrorist organizations. But still, we can understand the humanitarian needs. We can understand the political...
you have to balance also all these things together.
Precisely. Now, you mentioned the Abraham Accords, and I want to say something on this as well. One of the interesting thing I want to point out is, in spite of the fact that we have this very difficult war going on for more than 15 months, it's Gaza, it's Lebanon, it's Syria, it's Iran. I mean, the area is not peaceful and quiet. All the agreements that exist between Israel and its neighbors have remained in place.
Have been respected.
The peace agreement with Egypt, which is the longest, with Jordan, the Abraham Accord with the Emiratis, with Bahrain, with Morocco, all of this stays there. It shows that the basic strategic interests of us and those neighbors are similar, that we have things in common that keep us there, that we understand that we can work together for the benefit of all of us, and we understand who is the problem. And the problem, as I said before, starts, what we call the head of the snake is Iran. And I think that there's a good understanding of this in our region. One more point about something that you said. You said this was as overturned in a blink of an eye. No, I disagree with this statement.
So we're coming back.
I think it hasn't overturned. I think it stayed there. I think, like I said before, the basic interests are there. Therefore, the possibility of expanding those agreements into other countries is very much there. And let's see, we are, again, when we record this,
it's coming back.
When we record this, we are on the verge of the implementation of the agreement that was reached between Israel and Hamas about the release of the hostages and a ceasefire in Gaza. Let's see how this is developing, because I believe that the interest is there. We need to find the right way and the right balance between things, but it can. We might be right now, as we speak, on the verge of some very interesting strategic developments in the Middle East in the year to come.
Do we have an agreement for ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, do you think?
Well, there is an agreement. Again, as we speak right now, there is an agreement. There are some internal procedures we need to go through in Israel, which I believe will happen today and tomorrow again on the day of the recording. And then on Sunday or Monday, it's going to start the implementation. Now, it's a phased deal. In the first phase speaks about 42 days of temporary ceasefire. Now, in this agreement, there is room for further discussion on the next stages that can also lead to a permanent ceasefire.
Right.
But this depends on the negotiation. This depends on what's going to happen. So we know what they say. It's very hard to make predictions, especially about the future.
Of course.
So I don't want to make any
We're
predictions.
forecasting predictions based on the analysis as of today. I mean,
But,
as of today.
To be honest, I mean,
I know
Israel
like-
was established in 1948. Unfortunately, although there were more peaceful years than others, and although I think that the trend in general is a positive one, we have more and more peace agreements with our neighbors, still we found ourselves, there were very few years that we have to go to some sort of a war or military.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, look, this is it. We're going to have a ceasefire. It's going to be forever. No, I think this is a bit premature. I think, though, that the potential is there, but it depends on one very important thing. And this one very important thing is the understanding of those that fight against us, that they cannot win,
Right.
that they will never be able to defeat us by military means. And once they understand this and understand, okay, maybe it's better to work together with those Israelis and not just dream about eliminating them, then we have the possibility of achieving peace. I think to a certain extent this was happening already with some of the countries.
Yeah.
Egypt realized after the Yom Kippur War, the war of 1973, that they cannot beat us through military means, and this is what brought about more than 40 years of peace agreement with Egypt. Same goes with Jordan, same goes with others. Once the Palestinians as a whole, as a nation, understand this as well, and understand that their current strategy, which was implemented by Hamas, which is trying to defeat us, brings about nothing but misery and pain to themselves. Without this going deep here and make them change the way they want to work with and cooperate with us, it will be difficult to achieve peace. I want to be optimistic. I want to believe that this day would come.
Another fear that I had is when I saw the first attacks of Iran into Israel. And I feared the reaction of the West. I thought that if I would be me, I would probably react in a very aggressive way, because what Iran does, it's the only thing it did, it certified the fact that they did it because they cannot handle the loss. But the mere fact that everybody reacted in a simple way, okay, it's going to happen and it's going to end, at least in the cycles that or the media thing that were covered things, made me be afraid of what we mean by stability. And you correctly put that peace is not achieved yet, but something's moving. Now, add to this what has happened into Syria latest weeks, months. The Assad regime fell. And again, I got afraid for a terrorist who happens to be somehow legalized in a framework of an Islamic Republic of Syria, as he called it. I translated this into my media, into my interviews, into my writings, as the Afghan method in making Syria Afghanistan. No democracy, no elections, a lot of powerful investment from side of Turkey, which actually threatens now Israel itself. And I cannot tolerate this in the way that we are discussing how peace can be achieved, how business can be achieved, how stability can be achieved, how friendship can be built on. What's your intake into all this? I know it's a lot, but
yeah, I know. You are.
It's very interesting the discussion that we're making.
Good points that are actually you touch upon issues that are very, very complicated and complex, and not as simple as we would like them to be. I would start with Iran and then I move to Syria.
Please.
I don't fully share the way that you describe the situation and the reaction of Western countries. I remind you, both in April and October, there was a clear coalition there. It was not just Israel that was able to thwart the attack of the Iranians. There was a coalition of countries from the region and beyond that took part in this, and this is quite amazing if you think about it. There is no military alliance there. We are not members of NATO or any other alliance, but there was an ad hoc kind of cooperation that several countries, that understand the importance of this, took part to thwart those attacks by the Iranians. This is one. So I wouldn't say that it was like, oh, it's nothing, blah, blah, blah. Secondly, there was an Israeli reaction on both cases, which was very painful for the Iranians, I can assure you. There's a reason why the Iranians have decided since October not to react once again. They know how vulnerable they are right now and what might happen to them if they decide to react once again. So I think that they understand that they did not come up with their upper hand from this exchange. Iran is a big problem. Iran is a big problem which cannot be dealt only by Israel, and we expect the international community as a whole to be active on this issue. Most importantly is the nuclear program of Iran, but also there are very aggressive policies. As you said before, we're going to have a new administration in the United States. Let's see what strategy and what policies they are going to push forward. No, I'm going to say something that people know here, but Iran, it's not just in the region. Iran is a major supplier of military equipment and drones to Russia in its war in the Ukraine, for example. So the Iranian...
To the Houthis as well.
Yeah, of course, but the Houthis are still in the region.
We didn't touch
but
it.
I'm just saying, this is Iran, and it's a big problem. It's a global problem that needs to be dealt by the international community. As for Syria, look, you are very correct in what you're saying, that it's a problem when you start believing your own illusions. Okay. To a certain extent, think about what was known as the Arab Spring. Oh, look, it's a new democracy coming out in the Arab world.
Rejected by the Gulf states, by the way, because it was a so-called.
Also Syria. Again, the fact that the Assad regime was toppled is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. The Assad regime was a very bad regime to the Syrians and to the region. But when we look at the forces now taking control over Syria, we know where they come from. We know what is their ideology. We know what are their goals right now. So it requires us not to say, oh, it's only a threat, it's only a danger. That's not what I'm saying. But let's keep our eyes open. Let's understand who are these people. When they were in control in Idlib, it was a very clear Islamist jihadist regime.
Yeah, he was fighting with al-Zarqawi, who's going to get in the lead of this.
Now they are making interesting statements, but we need to see exactly what's going to happen. So far, we don't really see minorities being given any kind of part in ruling Syria. He appointed 50 new senior officers to the Syrian army.
Right.
None of them is from a minority. Some of them are not even Syrians. Right. All of them are jihadists. So at best, I would say the jury is still out, and it requires, the international community to be active, to make sure that you don't just throw money at the problem and hope it will disappear, but you need actually to make sure that your goals and your interests are being served by the means that you want to supply there. You try not to reduce it into an issue of an opportunity to solve the migration problem. It's a problem.
And that's what Turkey said to the EU, and the EU gave $1 billion
resolved,
extra.
But it's more complicated than this. Now, we are looking this. We are very cautious about this. We understand that there are a lot of threats and risks there, not without opportunities. What I'm trying to say, it's not God-given that it's going to be only a threat.
Yeah, of course.
You need to work and try to influence this so we can keep them, maybe even try to make them actually do what they are saying they're going to do when it comes again to minorities, to women's rights, etc., and maintaining stability and order in Syria, and not having any kind of negative, aggressive intention against their neighbors. Right. Let's see. I'm trying to find the right balance between saying we need to have our eyes open, there are a lot of risks here, and at the same time not to say, oh, this is just horrible, this is just terrible, we are going to face another Afghanistan, something of this sort. We need to try to understand that, to balance this and be active. And I'm talking not about Israel, but about the international community in trying to make sure this goes in a better direction than it might go.
Just to comment on what I said, I'm a bit of a realist. I cannot legalize somebody who has done atrocities in a terrorist way, who has been blamed for a lot of things, who suddenly comes out and says, "Well, I'm no longer a terrorist. I'm moderate now, and I will I will justify." And we come as in our thoughts, trying to, as you said, be cautious and see what's happening, how it is. This gives me a no other option. And when Jolani was asked, when are we going to have elections? He said, well, in 4 years. 4 years is a long, long time. And unlike this in Iraq, when the fall of Saddam happened, everybody was saying we have to have elections, we have to have political parties, and they found key people. I'm very much certain that Syria has other options, far more democratic, but my scientific value, at least the things that I was taught, not only the ones that I gained, says that if you want a really peaceful and developed Syria as it once was, you need...
It was never.
Well, far more than what it is right now. It's fully destroyed.
But it was never a democratic country.
It was never democratic, but at least it had options and opportunities, at least in the 50s and the 40s and so on and so forth. It needs to go on a more democratic path, obviously, because we need stability in the region, I think.
No, nobody that believes in our values can say anything against democracy. Of course. But reality is always more complicated.
Of course, no doubt.
And usually you don't get to have those kind of easy choices between, I want to be young, healthy, and rich, or do I want to be, and therefore I will choose this one. It's always more complicated than this.
Of course.
And you need to find those balances. Talk about democracy. Look at the Middle East. Do you see any country which is a really democratic country in the Middle East except for Israel? Not really. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest about this. So you expect now Syria to be the first one, and within a period of a few months? I'm not against it. I'm very much for this. But we saw sometimes what happens. If you take the Palestinian society as an example, last time there were elections in the Palestinian Authority was in 2006. Who won those elections?
Fatah.
No.
Hamas.
It was election for the parliament, and Hamas won.
Then there was civil war.
And then they overtook Gaza in a coup d'etat. What I'm saying is, democracy is not just the technicalities of elections.
Right.
It's a set of values as well. If you are unable to make sure that the society understand those values, and it's not just who are you voting for, but what are the rules of the game in which parties can be formed, and what they can, what kind of policies they can support, then you can create a situation that you elect the terrorists in the democratic elections, and then what do you do? So don't get me wrong, I'm very much not against democracy. On the contrary, I think it's the best thing that can happen. But I also don't want to see a situation that if you do not define it well, the outcome can be even worse than without elections.
A last question, because I know we can stay here for hours. The format of the discussion is so interesting, the way that we've settled things. And I can talk with you hours and hours. And I know this question is going to be a bit larger, but Lebanon, a new president, President Aoun, former military officer, seems to be trying to get a sort of balance. He assigned a prime minister. What's your intake on this? It seems it's been embraced. President Aoun would be embraced, obviously, from the West. I think fast. It happened from the from the president of Cyprus, from the prime minister of Greece already, and others. He made some comments also about Turkey, probably because of the instability around them, and especially in the north. But what's your intake about Lebanon? What's happening in the post-Hezbollah era? Let's say there's relatively peace.
I will start with the positive and then a bit less positive.
Absolutely.
The positive is that there is an opportunity for Lebanon. For Lebanon, there's an opportunity for Lebanon, which was and still is in a very difficult situation, economically, politically. They were in a stalemate for a long time,
Right.
because Hezbollah had a chokehold on Lebanon. Their economic situation is horrible, and they couldn't elect a president for more than 2 years now. And now there's an opportunity. How did this opportunity come about? Let's be honest about it. It came about because we, as Israel, after delaying it for quite a long time, eventually took the necessary steps, and we were able to break this chokehold of Hezbollah, because we eliminated the entire leadership of this terrorist organization, because we were able to neutralize about half of their forces, and we were able to show them that it's not such a good idea to go into a fight with Israel, because we can really hit you hard. And Hezbollah today and Hezbollah a year ago is a totally different creature, much weaker than it was before. It didn't disappear.
Politically it remains, yes.
It didn't. It's still there, but it's much weaker. The only reason why a president was able to be elected now by parliament was because Hezbollah is weaker. So I'm not expecting anybody to give us a medal to Israel for what we did. That's not my expectation. But I do expect people that know that
to acknowledge
that what has changed. This
reasons.
is what has changed. So it creates an opportunity. I want to believe. I don't know. We are not in direct contact, of course, with the president of Lebanon. But I want to believe that the president of Lebanon understands this opportunity. He was the commander of the Lebanese military. There are expectations that the Lebanese armed forces will implement what they're supposed to implement, and will be deployed through all of the southern part of Lebanon, and make sure, because this is the crucial point, they need to make sure that Hezbollah does not rearm, Hezbollah does not regroup, Hezbollah does not go back to where it was before we eliminated its power in the southern part of Lebanon. And we are going to keep a very open eye on this one. We are not going to allow Hezbollah to go back to where it was on October 7th and go back to a situation that they can do to us another October. We will not let them do this. And for this, we need that the international community and the more positive elements within Lebanon will actually implement what they need to implement. And then there might be some hope for Lebanon.
A very last on Cyprus. Do you think that, considering the development of negotiations and the possibilities and the options opening, is there a role, an actual role for Cyprus?
Where? I'm sorry.
In the negotiations framework, in the new architecture of the Middle East as it shapes, and probably the establishment of something more concrete, maybe?
It's a bit of a trick question.
No, because of geographical proximity, mostly.
I think that
Can it be a place of negotiations, do you think?
I need to be very careful here.
Right.
Cyprus is the closest EU country to the region. And I think that because of this, Cyprus has perhaps a better understanding than many others about about this area, about the challenges, about the opportunities. I think that Cyprus has been and can continue to be, for example, a place in which different elements can come together and have discussions. It's because of this proximity. When we speak of a role, we just need to be, I would say, modest in the way that we understand this term of a role. Cyprus doesn't have those kind of a leverage over the players in the region that can actually force them to make any compromises. I don't think this is even in any way the way of thinking in Cyprus. They understand the size, but I think that some sort of a complementary role, if it's by the mere location, if it's on different Take for example, again, it's a very good example, the maritime corridor. It's an example. Was this the major thing in this regard of the situation of alleviating humanitarian suffering in Gaza? No, but they had a role. They could have contributed, and they did. So I think that if you look at roles in this regard, complementary role on some specific issues, on some specific elements, which is not necessarily the hardcore, the biggest problems, yeah, I believe they can, because I think that they enjoy the trust of many of the players in the region. They showed in the past that they are capable of doing this. So I'm not excluding this possibility at all. I'm not saying that they are playing a role.
There needs to be step, obviously. I mean, there's a whole shifting on strategy, on strategic relationship and diplomacy, probably on those things.
They bring to the table Cyprus brings to the table several advantages: proximity, understanding, trust of the players,
multicultural, multi-religious, also,
which are things that I think that we would be welcomed by players in the region.
Yeah. Dear Ambassador, thank you very much for this amazing discussion. I really enjoyed it very much, for the simple reason that you've blended your personality, your experiences, the scientific value, the diplomatic value into this, and you know that we've discussed obviously off camera also about Strategy International and explaining the reasoning of why we've established a think tank, an institution of this, exactly because we believe in this dialogue. The last question is exactly our mission. The dialogue, the capability to negotiate, the capability to expose the positions and be able to discuss in open or closed sessions. These sort of important elements are coming into being, assuming and expecting that there are going to be more stability and more options. Things are changing politically in the landscape, in the global landscape, whether this is in the EU or the US or Canada. In the Middle East, things are changing. So we do hope to a more increasing, if you want, dialogue, at least people to people or academia to academia, scientific value to scientific value. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and obviously we have an open door policy in our think tank. You're most welcome, and thank you very much for the job that you're doing with regard to the bilateral relations between the two countries.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure. I appreciate to being given this opportunity for this discussion, and what can I say? I'll be happy to come back for further discussions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching another web series of Prime Analysis at Strategy International. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow into our social media and YouTube channel platforms. My name is Dr. Marios Efthymiopoulos. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Strategy International. And remember, impact makes a difference.